Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to welcome everyone to Beth, Tephilath Moses Synagogue. If you're a guest, a regular, or watching on our website, we're glad you could join us. If you see someone that you haven't met before, please introduce yourself after Kiddush. When we enter and when we go. This week's Parsha, Tavo, is Hebrew for when you enter. Guides the Jewish people and what they're to do when they enter the land of milk and honey. Last week's Parsha, Ki Tetzeh, is Hebrew for when you go. Immediately, the mezuzah came to mind, and the Shema it holds, and our obligation, or more importantly, the commandment, to write it on our doorposts of our home and upon our gates. And I couldn't help but relate this week's entering with last week's going. This week's Parsha appears to run parallel to the Shema that includes blessings and curses. Why the mezuzah and the Shema? When we enter our houses or go out into the world, we acknowledge the Shema to help remind us of how the Lord is there to help us with our daily lives by following His commandments and the repercussions of not doing so. Let's look at some of the parallels. The Shema says, "And you shall write them," these words, "on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates." Tavo. "And it shall be that when you have passed over this Jordan, that you shall erect these stones which I'm commanding you today on Mount Ebal, and you shall coat them with plaster, and you shall write on these stones all the words of this Torah very clearly." The Shema, "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might." Tavo. Moses exhorted the Israelites to observe these laws faithfully with all their heart, soul, noting that they had affirmed that the Lord was their God and that they would obey God. The Shema, "That I will give rain to your land, the early and the late rains, that you may gather in your grain, your wine, and your oil." Tavo, a promise to give them abounding prosperity, provide rain in season. The Shema, "Beware lest your heart be deceived and you turn and serve other gods and worship them, and anger of the Lord will blaze against you, and He will close the heavens, and there will not be rain, and the earth will not give you its fullness, and you will perish quickly from the good land that the Lord gives you." Tavo. Moses taught that if they did not obey God and observe faithfully the commandments, then God would curse them in the city and the country, and on it goes. Being thankful. As far back as I can remember, I was reminded to say please and thank you. Oh, and keep my elbows off the table. After someone had given me something or done something special, I can still hear my mother's words. "And what do you say?" "Thank you," was the expected reply. It's one of the first things we're taught as children. The bringing of the first fruits is the way Hashem taught the Israelites how to say thank you and acknowledge all He had done for them through the recitation that followed. Shouting from the mountaintops. The blessings are shouted from the top of Mount Gerizim and curses from Mount Ebal. Tavo contains the curses to be inflicted on the Jewish people if they do not obey God. The Torah teaches that no evil comes from above. Accordingly, we must conclude that even the most terrible curse contains only good, albeit in a hidden fashion. Our sages made two statements on the subject of hidden good. The first, everything that God does is for the best. And the second, this is also for the best. The first statement is attributed to Rabbi Akiva, who once set out on a journey with a donkey, a rooster, and a candle. Weary from his travels, he reached a town only to be turned away from all the inns. Rabbi Akiva had to spend the night out in the open field on the outskirts of town. That night a lion appeared and devoured the rabbi's donkey. A wild cat came along and gobbled up the rooster, and the wind blew out his candle. Rabbi Akiva said, "Everything that God does is for the best." In the morning, Rabbi Akiva found out that during the night, murderous robbers attacked the town, slaughtering all its inhabitants. He then understood that what had befallen him had saved him from a similar fate. This story illustrates one way of understanding ultimate good in blessings, which seems to be hidden within its opposite of curses. Although Rabbi Akiva's misfortunes caused him temporary anguish, he was spared further suffering by those very events. The wording itself of "everything God does is for the best" implies that whatever happens leads to ultimate good, even if it appears at first that the events themselves are not good. Is this easy? I don't think so, given some events can be so catastrophic. But the only way to bring ourselves out of the darkness is to find the lesson within that darkness and work towards bringing it into the light by remembering everything God does is for the best. So are we entering or are we going? Aren't we doing both? Don't these teachings prepare us for the land of milk and honey, but also to be aware of the darkness within the curses? We know life's not always milk and honey given its ups and downs, but as a nation and as a people, it's incumbent upon us to be prepared to both enter and to go. Shabbat Shalom.